I don't think education and child protection intersects at all. And if at all we've seen intersection, then this is because of a few individuals, either individuals within the system or individual within the civil society organizations, or a few attempts made by, through a public-private partnership. I've seen that happening. And I've also seen that disappearing and not, I don't think it has become systemic. There is no uniformity at all when it comes to, a child's right to development intersecting with child protection. And in today's topic, the topic that we've taken up today, where we are talking about violence against children, we are talking about, different forms of violence and maltreatment. I think if we want to achieve anything, any goals around education, so I see education in two aspects. One is, education as in creating awareness. And here, when I'm talking about education, I am referring to our education system, okay? The schooling system, the educational institutions. And I feel that if we are not, if a child is not going to feel safe, if the child is not going to be feeling safe, and his family and the community is not going to feel that the child is safe in the educational system, we are going to see what we are seeing today, a high rate of dropout, no retention. The other is, I feel somewhere the academic institutions, which are, in the midst of the community, should also, their mandate should also be a child learning safe in school and outside school. And I don't think we've gone anywhere closer to seeing how, if a child is not within an educational institution, it's an alarm for us. Somewhere we must, we should be concerned as to, is it because the child's safety outside the school, within the community, is being compromised? So I definitely don't see it. And, closer to what child protection is, I feel very often it's very tokenism and very decorative. So when it comes to child protection, we have, to a great extent, I'll link it to child friendly. So we have these beautiful paintings within the schools. We have beautifully painted walls. We may have a few infrastructural facilities, but definitely not the human element, the element that interacts with the children is definitely, they definitely don't understand child protection. And again, my last remark here would be, when you're talking about child protection and intersecting with education, let us not all the time think it is only the teaching staff who needs to understand child protection. I feel child protection, everybody, every single person who is responsible in running and managing these educational institutions should understand what child protection is. And of course, beyond that, maybe at a later stage, I would like to come in about the educational needs and protection intersecting once the child is rescued from a situation of exploitation. And when the child post-rescue comes in contact with a very comprehensive child protection system. What happens to the education and the priority given to education of the child post the child's rescue? And do we really understand putting that child back into mainstreaming him into our educational institution is part of his or her rehabilitation? So I feel, this is what I would like to start off with for all of us to think. I think what worked for people like us, Prerna, we have Railway Children here, several organizations, is, did we listen to children? Did we hear them? Did we ask them what works best for them? And I think every time our programming, our policies, our laws, includes the voices of children, the voices of the community, I think we've come out with very practical, doable solutions. So this is first. Are we giving importance, be it the child protection system or the education system? Are we giving importance to children's voices? Number one. Two, do we have an understanding of what child-friendly means? a very comprehensive understanding of what exactly child-friendly means, child-friendly approach, procedures, or tokenism and decoration in our child-friendly approach. 3, when we are talking about victims of any form of violence, and Dr. Nair also mentioned about mental health, it's so important, be it the school, be it any child protection services, how client, child-centric, victim-centric, trauma-informed, and recently we've had a discussion that we shouldn't end at trauma-informed. Are we trauma-focused as well? The third, again, what Dr. Nair spoke about, what systems are in place to ensure there is no re-victimization and re-trafficking. Because the day re-victimization and re-trafficking happens, the child loses faith in us, loses faith in the system, and the perpetrators become stronger and stronger by the day, going all out without any consequences. So this is my, next. The next is, do we have a community approach? One, we spoke about children's participation. Where is our community approach? Is community involved in protecting children and in the development of the child? Both, because I've been talking about the intersection here. It's a handful of us doing something. We are all working in silos. Of course, we come together. That is different, but we still find ourselves working in silos, not involving. And when I say community, I just don't mean families. Community has so many other other institutions there. There is the political party, there is the elected representative, there is, under the integrated child protection scheme, you have the child protection committee. Where is their role? Even today, we shy away from involving the local corporator, the elected representative, thinking, oh my God, if we are associated with them, we would appear as being very apolitical. It's high time we put on these responsibility on these institutions. Where is the resource mapping? Where is the vulnerability mapping? And I always say, and I love these models, which include Prerna's model. I love these community-based child protection service centers linked with education. For example, mobile creches. See the rate of, every time you have such community-based, railway children spoke about their own drop-in centers at railway stations. The minute you have these community-based centers for children where they can access, they can be contacted, they know whom to reach when there is a need. Community-based centers. So, mobile creche is a model. Rainbow Children's is model. Let's look at Prerna's model, where all our night care centers were situated in a municipal school. Direct link with protection. We ensured that the educational system, and kudos to Bombay Municipal Corporation, who could see that if we had to disrupt the intergenerational cycle of human trafficking existing and deep rooted in the red light area, the model, the way forward is ensure education and protection walk together hand in hand. So a model where the night care center is situated in a municipal school. We have so much of infrastructure just lying unused with the education department. Why is it that this infrastructure is not used for community centers, for children who come there, who learn, who interact with us, where we give them their right to information so that they are in a position to make informed choices moving forward? Give them life skills, give them independent living skills, also support them with their curricular activities. Our schools are not enough. They are just checking the box. If the child has to really learn today, if the education has to be meaningful for him, and eventually he has to see the result of how it sustained him, I think the child in the coming few years is going to require these kind of support system to retain him in school. I feel these kind of approaches, the public-private partnership, the health sector, my last point, the health sector has a proactive a promotional, approach. I think we need to have that kind of an approach. Just a preventive and rehabilitation approach is important, is relevant, is making sense. We are seeing results, but I think we need to go a little further and look at these other 3 approaches as well. Thank you so much.